Good morning. Okay, so today you are going to take some notes about algebraic expressions. We're going to look at combining like terms today, some specific vocabulary, um, identifying then the parts once we have those vocab terms, and then actually starting to combine some like terms. So we'll go through, you'll complete these notes while watching the video. If at any point I'm talking too quickly and you need time to write, then I expect you to pause the video, fill in what you need to fill in, and then continue on. Please listen to everything that I'm saying, but take breaks as you need them so that you can focus as best as you can. After you do this, you're going to submit these notes into the Schoology assignment, and then you will move on to the IXL practice lesson if there's time in class. Your homework will be to finish this video, these notes, and submit them to Schoology. The IXL is not homework, it is just classwork if time remains. Okay, so let's jump into it. Let's start out on this page. We're going to look at some important vocabulary for this unit. So, in the middle column are the definitions. So, our first one is parts of an expression separated by a plus or minus sign, and that is called a term. So, I'm going to pull examples from this main example up top. A term example would be 3x. Another term would be 2y. Another term would be negative 4x. Okay, so I'm taking these examples from right up here. The terms are the things that are the numbers, the variables, or the number variable combinations that are separated by plus and minus signs. Okay, our next term is a symbol that represents an unknown value. And that's going to be a variable. So in the above example, we have x and we have y, but any letter could be a variable. So it could be x, it could be y, it could be a, it could be b, it could be c, etc. Any letter in the alphabet could be a variable. X and y are probably the most commonly used. All right, a next vocab word, a term that represents a constant value. This is called a constant. And a constant is something that is just a number. It has no variable with it. It is just a number. That number could be positive or it could be negative, but it is just a number, not the variable. So in this example above, we only have one number that is a constant. The rest of these all have a variable, so that means they are not constants. The 7 in this example is the only variable. I added negative 4 in here just as another example that constants could be positive or could be negative. They could also be decimals, they could be fractions. Okay, your next vocab word is a number multiplied by a variable, and that's going to be called a coefficient. So a number multiplied by a variable would be 3x, so the coefficient is just the 3. So when you write down 3x in your notes, I want you to also highlight the 3. Right? Another example from up above could be negative 4x. The coefficient is just the negative 4. It does not include the variable. All right, and then our last vocab word is a term with the same variable and exponent value. These are called like terms. So, the same examples from above, 3x and 4x are one set of like terms because they both have the same variable. A second example, I'll do this in a different color so it's easy to see it's a second example, would be 5x squared and 2x squared. These are like terms because they have the same variable and the same exponent. Same variable, same exponent. So in our first example, 3x and 4x, those just have x's, but these ones have an x squared, right there. So the exponent and the variable must be the same in order for a term to be considered a like term. All right, if you need to pause anything and catch up, do that now. Pause the video, catch up. All right, so we're going to do a little practice with identifying parts of our expression below. So these are the same vocab words from up here. We're now just putting it into practice. Okay, so we're going to identify the parts of the expression below. So our terms in this one are everything separated, remember up here, are everything separated by a plus and minus sign. So 5x is a term. W is a term. This one is a -7. We're going to talk about bringing the sign in front. And since this sign in front is a minus sign, it also is a -7x. A minus and a negative are the same thing. And we'll talk more about that as we work together. All right, our next term in this expression is 10. That's a constant. And then our final term is a negative y to the 9th. All right, so now we're going to talk about our coefficients. And if we go back up here, a coefficient is a number multiplied by a variable. So it's the number in front of a variable. It does not include the variable. All right, so when we look over here, we have a 5. This one has nothing. So anytime there's a variable with no number, we can put a 1 in front of it. So let's do that now, just so we remember. If we have a variable without a number in front, then it has an imaginary 1. So we can put that imaginary 1 there. So let's talk about what and list our coefficients. For our first one of 5x, our coefficient is 5. For our next one of 1w, our coefficient is 1. For this one here, this is a -7. So for that coefficient, we have a -7. 10 is not a coefficient because it doesn't have a variable. So we'll talk about that one later. And then our final one, -1y to the 9th, our coefficient here is -1. So notice that these two, -1 to the 9th and 1w, are both a 1, but one is negative and one is positive. All right, and then we're going to look at our constants. And our only constant in this sentence, in this number sentence here, is 10. It's the only number without a variable, and a constant is a number without a variable. All right, so now we're going to group our like terms. So we're just going to list them of which ones go with which. So I'm going to do a little circling so that we can see them too, and I'm going to use some different colors because I think that's really helpful. So our x terms are 5x and -7x. These are the only two terms that both have an x. So 5x and -7x. Those terms are like terms because they both have an x. Our w, so this one, the 1w, the 10, and the -1y are not like terms because they all have different variables or no variables. All right, let's go down and try our next one. So our terms in this sentence are 7x, -12, and 2h to the 4th. All right, so our terms are 7x, negative 12, and 2h to the fourth. So you'll notice the only one with a sign in front is negative 12. And that's because if it's a minus 12, that's the same as a negative 12. Our other two terms, 7x and 2h to the fourth, are both positive, so we do not need to include a plus sign for those. Okay, next we're looking at our coefficients. Remember, a coefficient is a term that has a number and a variable together, but the coefficient is just the number in front of the variable. So here we have a number and a variable together, and here we have a number and a variable together. So our first coefficient is 7. Our second coefficient is 2. We're just listing the number in front of the variable. So up here, we listed just the numbers in front of the variable also. So we did 5, 1, negative 7, negative 1, right? So we were just listing the numbers in front of the variable. Okay? All right, our constant, a constant is a number without a variable, a standalone number, and we only have one of those in this expression, and it is negative 12. Okay, so now we're looking for like terms, and if we refer to our definition up here, a like term is a term with the same variable and the same exponent. So let's see if we have anything here with the same variable, same exponent, and we do not. This x does not match. There are no other x's here, right? And we have an h here, and there are no other h's here. And this one, a constant could have a like term, but we don't have any other terms that are just numbers, right? So in this case, we would say that there are no like terms. All right, so let's actually get to combining some like terms. So there's 3 steps for combining like terms, and I put them here at the top for you. First of all, you're going to put a 1 in front of any variable that doesn't have a number. That's just going to help you remember that there is actually a number there and what that number is. All right, so step 1 is done. Step 2, circle or highlight sets of like terms. Include the sign in front. Okay, in this one, for number 1, all of these are like terms. They all have an x. So 5x, and I'm going to circle them just so we can see them really easily, plus 8x, plus 1x. So we have 3 like terms here, and they are like because of that x, right? This one has an x. They all have an x with no exponent. All right, so we've got number 2 done, and we included the signs in front. So don't get lazy and just do this. Make sure you include that whole sign in front, all right? Because that is what's telling you what to do. Are we going to add or are we going to subtract? The sign in front helps us know that we're actually going to be adding. If we didn't have that sign in front, we might wonder, what are we supposed to do? Okay, so now we're just adding. You're just adding. You could use your calculator. I think for this one, it's actually pretty simple. We're just adding our numbers. So we're adding 5 plus 8 plus 1. So I'm going to show you on this one, and I'm going to write this down, but this step you don't normally have to write down. You're just simply adding 5 plus 8 plus 1. So 5 plus 8 plus 1 is 14, and we have to remember to bring the x with us. All right, 14x is our final answer. All right, let's move on to number 2. All right, with number 2, we're still using our same 2 steps that we used over here. So number 1 says to put a 1 in front of any variable without a number. Well, all of these variables have a number, so we don't have to do that step. So this one we get to skip. All right, now we're going to highlight or circle any sets of like terms, including the number in front. So 27 has a y and negative 3y or minus 3y. 2x does not have a like term, so we're just going to leave it for now. We're not going to cross it out or do anything else. We're just going to leave it. All right, so we have completed step 2. So now we're going to add or subtract. So for this one, and like I said, you don't normally have to write this step down, but I'm just showing you what we're going to do. On your calculator or in your head, you're going to do 27 minus 3. And 27 minus 3 is 24y. And then we just bring this guy down, plus 2x. So that's as simplified as we can go. We cannot simplify any further because this one has a y and this one has an x, so they are not like terms. This is our final answer. All right, now we can do these when they have decimals or when they have fractions as well. And sometimes you'll have a combo of both of those. You might have whole numbers, you might have decimals and fractions all together in one expression. So let's take a look at one with some decimals. Okay, so we're still using our same steps that are up here, right? So we're going to put a 1 in front of any variable that doesn't have a number. And in this case, we don't have any, right? So step 2 would be to group our like terms. So I see a b here, and I see a b here. All right, so those are our two b's.